Welcome to One School, One Planet podcast episode 6, continuing our conversations on the fertile edges of permaculture, ecology and education. We've just got a very short episode of the podcast this week, mainly because last week we had 2 full-length episodes, one featuring our interview with Dewi Morris and Emma Jones from Llanfwllyn High School, and the second one featuring our interview with Dr. Andy Letcher from the Schumacher College. So we'll keep it a bit shorter this week. The other reason we've got to keep it a little bit shorter is that we've been busy trying to tie up all sorts of little odds and ends before Steve heads off to Uganda. And actually Steve has head off now, so hopefully in the coming weeks we'll be able to report a little bit from the PDC that he's doing there, as well as from the first East Africa Permaculture Convergence. So in this episode, me and Steve actually talk about the complex ecology of the Cae Bodfach Community Garden, and about all the different kinds of plants that are grown there, and some of the uses they can be put to. So we hope you enjoy the show. So we're down in the community garden again. This time we're planting out a whole bunch of bulbs. Tell us a bit about the bulbs that we're planting, what we're doing.
Well, it's always a good excuse to get out of the office, to get down to the garden. I think we were just chatting the other day saying how it's really important, I mean, for your own health and well-being to get out of the office and get a bit of exercise, be rained on a little bit.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm going away. I'm going to be in Uganda again from next week. So I'm kind of looking at all the plants and the bits and bobs that we've got lying around and thinking we need to get those into the ground.
Yeah.
This whole project, the Cae Bodfach project, is about diversification. Is that farming, and modern farming has created monoculture. So literally stood in a field that has one thing in it, which is this ryegrass, and it's shot through. There's got quite a lot of celandine in it. Yeah. But that is really it. There's nothing else. And what we've lost traditionally is these herb-rich meadows with hundreds and hundreds of different species all happily living together. That would have been fantastic fodder and grazing for animals and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And obviously would have supported huge insect populations, which would support huge bird populations. And we talked about that when we talked about the fish and everything last week. So it's a little bit random. I haven't made specific choices over what bulbs we're putting in, other than these are the ones that we were given.
Yeah.
They're oxidazes, they're ornamental alliums, crocosmia, a whole bunch of names I didn't quite recognise on the packets.
They're like pretty flowers.
But yeah, they're the common things again that would be from, missing from elements missing from this system, and also which is sort of commonly available through local garden centres. And I'm ever so sorry, I can't quite remember who donated them.
I'm sure we can find out.
We can find out. So if you're out there, we appreciate it and we love you. But I forgot. So it's all about observation. So permaculture is about observation, and what's just really lovely is to see the orchard at this time of year. So we are just at the beginning of bud burst.
Yeah.
The apple trees are just cracking open their buds. And pear up here, just popping out the first. Look at that one. These apple flowers, beautiful flowers forming on the tips of those of there. So it's just this is that wonderful time. We're in the last few days of April, and everything's coming to life. So great time to be observing the garden. I'm noticing things that we've put in over the last 2 or 3 years, and how some of those are now starting to naturalise and move around a little bit, so that's really exciting. And we were just saying to each other before we started recording is we should be doing perhaps more conscious survey, species survey and ID and stuff like that, so that
that might be a useful or a fun activity for students to do at some point.
Absolutely. So that we've got kind of a baseline to make comparisons to in the future. And when this is a beautifully overtaken with herbs and flowers and everything, and people say, "Oh, it's always been like that."
Yeah.
I guarantee you, it hasn't. It wasn't when we came here. But Yeah, look, we've got things that are now starting to spread and self-seed, and
That looks like kind of, what is it, sage? Or
it's
something?
a sage bush, and it's grown up and it's fallen over, and where it's touching the ground, it's starting to root, and starting to sort of colonise its own little area. We've got Lenten roses there that we put in over the last few years, and they're now really getting established. And actually, I'm really happy to see patches of nettle popping up. So it's really, really good wildlife habitat. It's really, really good, and that's again an indicator of there being good fertility there.
And it is you can use it, you can eat it, you can make tea with it.
Once on a permaculture course, we got into a competition, not a competition, but what's the most, the plant, the UK plant that has the most uses, and it was a tight match between nettle and comfrey.
Yeah,
The
you
plants-
can make ropes with nettle and everything, can't you?
You can make clothes, you can make fabric from nettle, obviously you can eat it.
Yeah.
It's loaded with full of iron. So actually animals, after they've given birth, will quite often go and choose to graze on nettles because it will help replace some of the iron obviously they would have lost in the birthing process and so forth.
Yeah.
People with arthritis find if they sting themselves with nettles, it actually it loosens up their joints and creates I don't know exactly what a biological response. Herbalists use nettle seeds to treat kidney disease. Nettle also is an indicator of fertile ground.
Yeah.
It accumulates and holds up nitrogen. So nitrogen, if it's in the form of say cow slurry or something like that, it's very, very mobile, will evaporate into the air or run into rivers. Plants like nettles, what they do is that they lock that up into the structure of the plant. So as a gardener, you can see nettles and go, I know where there's fertility.
Yeah.
And also is you can come along with a scythe or a sickle or something and just literally harvest the nettles, throw them into a barrel of water, and then you've got a nitrogen-rich tea after a few days, which you can literally then liquid feed for your veggies.
Yeah.
So yeah, nettle's a really, really wonderful plant. All the time in permaculture, rallying against this idea of there being weeds. We always say no weeds, no pests. Every plant has a function. And every plant is kind of telling you something about the environment, especially that it's chosen to grow in. It's not an accident that it's there.
They're taking advantage of little niche opportunities, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely that. And, rule number one is soil should always be covered. No bare soil. And when we think about when you might get bare soil in a sort of natural environment, natural world is, okay, there might be a fire, there might be a flood, there might be a landslide, a bear might dig a hole, or a mole might throw up a mole heap. So there might be a bushfire.
Yeah.
You get bare soil in nature. But they are episodic events that actually are kind of mini catastrophes in some ways. So nature can deal with that. It rebuilds very quickly and has these really specialist plants that can germinate and grow very quickly, even within a few weeks, and cover that bare soil. So we call them weeds. They're nature's band-aids.
Yeah.
And the kinds of seeds that germinate in bare soil depend on the conditions of the soil. So if it's light and blowing away, then the kind of plants that have roots that are very fine and like a mesh and that grow on the surface, they will tend to be the ones that germinate and they will stabilise that loose soil.
Yeah.
If the soil's bare and it's been really compacted and there's not much air in it, then the plants that will germinate tend to be things like docks and things that have deep tap roots that uncompact the soil. So,
and as soon as they start to take hold in a particular niche, they start to transform the soil, the structure of the soil, and all of those kinds of things.
And the microbial communities within the soil change too, and then the mycelium, the different kind of fungi, which then creates different circumstances that don't suit the dock anymore.
And a different plant comes along.
So we call that succession.
Yeah.
Plants are enabling each other. So if you've got loads of green fly in your garden, don't see them as pests, don't see them as enemies, don't think you've got to kill them with some kind of toxic thing. They're telling you something. They're telling you your garden is out of balance. And how we restore that balance is through diversity. there's lots and lots and lots of insects and birds and things that love to eat green fly.
Yeah.
So what it's saying is you don't have enough ladybirds,
Yeah.
you don't have enough hoverflies, and to get ladybirds and hoverflies, you create habitat for them. One way to create habitat for ladybirds is nettles.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of permaculture understanding that we're trying to promote and encourage people to see. Look at the world through a slightly different lens. Nature isn't the world of goodies and baddies. It's not a big competition, a big punch up. Everything's enabling everything else, and then things move on. It has a succession. It has a dynamic to it.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to do here at Cae Bodfach is accelerate that.
Yeah.
Maybe the odd bird will bring seeds in and plant things, accidentally, randomly, that we didn't plan for, and that's fantastic. That's why we've planted all these berries.
To draw them in.
I don't mind so much if berries get picked and eaten, then fantastic.
Yeah.
If they get left on the bush, then the birds are going to eat them, and then that will help propagate. And birds bring in phosphates. Bird droppings are very rich in phosphorus. Phosphorus is what aids the development of root growth in plants. So you realise, the birds are about cycling the phosphates. If we want to increase the quality of the land, we put in things with berries, so that brings in the birds.
Yeah.
It's back to this thing about relationships.
Perfect. While Steve's away, I'm going to be continuing to produce the podcast. I'm hopefully going to get some more guests. And then over the next 6 weeks, we'll also be including content that Steve's recording out in Uganda. So hopefully interviews with staff at Sabina School, interviews with participants on the Permaculture design course, and then also feedback and comments from the Convergence as well. So we're looking forward to it. See you soon.